Ladies and gentlemen, Simon Feck here, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? All right, ladies and gentlemen. This week, we're bringing this live stream to you, ladies and gentlemen. We're bringing this live stream to you, ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know that next week, ladies and gentlemen, a big announcement. I don't know. Maybe some of you remember, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe some of you remember, but about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, Simon Feck said, hey, there's some big news coming, ladies and gentlemen. There's Charles Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Smith putting some hours in on the Clown Show today, ladies and gentlemen. So next week, ladies and gentlemen, a big announcement. Like 3 months ago, I said, hey, a big announcement's coming, but I can't release anything. It's coming next week, ladies and gentlemen. How the hell's it going, Charles Smith says, ladies and gentlemen. It's going great, Charles Smith. We've been working on a project for about 1.5 years now, ladies and gentlemen, and it's about ready to come to fruition, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, a big announcement, ladies and gentlemen. And Simon Feck's been scouring the MMA internet, ladies and gentlemen, to find the right people to put the all-star team together, ladies and gentlemen. To put the all-star team together, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go over some names today, ladies and gentlemen. Who made the cut and who didn't make the cut, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me tell you something. You got somebody like Musical MMA. A month or two ago, maybe 3 months ago, I said a big announcement's coming. And without even asking a question, Musical MMA said, hey, can I be part of it? Just like that. No questions asked, ladies and gentlemen. But through the 1.5 years, I have been asking people if they could do me a favor. Can you do Simon Feck a favor? A little simple favor. And you find out who's going to do you a favor and who isn't. Basically, most people will not do a favor for you, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. All right. So listen to me. If you didn't do a favor for Simon Feck, a little simple task that I asked you to do, you ain't getting in on the big super group, ladies and gentlemen. Don't come crying to Simon Feck, because I'm going to give you some examples here. Real simple, easy examples. Like here's one. Before I get into, a couple other little things. Here's an example. There's this guy named Hunt. He's a scouser, ladies and gentlemen. Hunt the scouser, ladies and gentlemen. He sounds a little bit like Paddy Pimblett, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Paddy Pimblett happens to be a fighter in the UFC, ladies and gentlemen. That's exactly what we're putting together. A super group, ladies and gentlemen, for the MMA YouTube world, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I asked Hunt a simple little request. Can you come on my show and pretend to be Paddy Pimblett? He said, listen, I don't think I sound like Paddy Pimblett. I said, I think you do, and it doesn't matter. It'd be funny even, if you don't sound like Paddy Pimblett. So here's the example. Hunt, don't come to Simon Feck. Don't come to Simon Feck after you see what's happening here. Because next week, the information, next week, They're dropping it next week, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be like a press conference, ladies and gentlemen, next week. And then Hunt's going to say, oh, hey, Simon Feck. Simon Feck, I'll be your Patty Pimlet. Oh, I'll be your Patty Pimlet. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Hunt. Hunt, go fuck yourself, bitch. It was a test, Hunt. It was a test. You wanted me to put you in your video. I didn't want to put you in the video. You know why? Because you wouldn't do the Patty Pimlet thing. But now I put you in the videos going, look, it's so simple. Somebody asks you to do something, you do it for them. And now Hunt is going to come running to Simon Feck after he hears the news next week, ladies and gentlemen. Woo, ladies and gentlemen. Hunt, go fuck yourself. Okay? After the big news drops next week, ladies and gentlemen. Same thing. City Life Project, ladies and gentlemen. A nice guy. He's a nice guy. He's always nice to me. So I'm not going to, bust on him too big, ladies and gentlemen. I asked City Life Project, I said, hey, would you do a couple little voiceovers for me and act like you're a commentator for this little short 30-second thing? He said he'll think about it. And he goes, no, you know what? I'm not going to do it. You know what? City Life Project, go fuck yourself. Okay? Go fuck yourself, City Life Project. The next one, MMA Cam, ladies and gentlemen. MMA Cam. MMA Cam, the greatest talent out there, ladies and gentlemen, in the MMA world, ladies and gentlemen. MMA Cam, ladies and gentlemen. Well, MMA Cam, buddy, I'm sorry to tell you. Don't come asking me, Simon Feck, after next week. Don't come asking me. Hey, Simon Feck, you think I could get in on the project? You ain't getting in on the project, MMA Cam. Let me tell you something about MMA Cam. MMA Cam was the original Mr. Doxer, ladies and gentlemen. He's going around trying to dox Simon Feck, ladies and gentlemen. He handed the information over to, like, say, Casual MMA or whatever the stupid that guy's name is. And then he handed it over to this other guy, okay? So, anyways, MMA Cam, Mr. Doxer himself, ladies and gentlemen, don't come running to Simon Feck wanting to be part of the project. You hear me? The project that's dropping next week, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, I need some video running, ladies and gentlemen. And if you would go over to @MMA Access, ladies and gentlemen, @MMA Access, you see it right here. @MMA Access, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting a Discord thing, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I got out of the Discord, ladies and gentlemen. Please sign up to MMA Access, ladies and gentlemen. That's not the big news. I just need a little separate channel to get B-roll footage, ladies and gentlemen. If you want, if you get a green light to be part of the project, ladies and gentlemen, get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we've been doing this for like a year and a half, putting a project together. Big news dropping next week, ladies and gentlemen. A big, news conference. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen. You didn't ask me a favor. Oh, but dude, all right, look. I don't know how long you're going to hang in here, Charles Smith, but I think I got 40 names. I'm going to try to go through them real quick. Okay? Your name's on there, buddy. Let me tell you that. All right. I'm going to try to run through this, right? I'm going to try to run through this. And if you think you disagree with it and you want to be part of the project, you just go ahead and put your name into the MMA Simon Feck Instagram and go ahead and beg Simon Feck, ladies and gentlemen. Just go ahead and beg, you know? But I know who's been nice to me and who's not been nice to me, ladies and gentlemen. I know all the doxers out there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's fun to do this and everything, you know. Let's run through them real quick, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, listen. Let me put that one up. What do we got here? Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Charles Smith says, you didn't ask me a favor with my deep voice, I think it says. I don't know what it is. I can't read today, ladies and gentlemen. And then Charles Smith says, thank you for putting me on your list. Everybody on the list is not going into the Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen. If your name's on the list, it doesn't mean you're getting in the project, ladies and gentlemen. Let me run through these real quick. I'm going to run through them real quick, ladies and gentlemen, and give my little reasoning and this and that and everything. We already did Hunt, ladies and gentlemen. And you already know I told Hunt, go fuck yourself, okay? You ain't getting in on the project now. I asked you to do a simple thing, and you wouldn't do it for me. Don't be begging later on. City Life Project, I asked you for a simple thing. You didn't do the simple thing for me, therefore you're out of the project. Combat Casual, ladies and gentlemen. He used to go by the name of Idaho, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Well, he's just a patsy, okay? You weren't the first one, Combat Casual. It was already over in the lap of Jock, okay? And then another guy, with the name, his first name starts with G. And then it came from MMA Cam. You weren't the first one, Combat Casual. Combat Casual, you're out. Combat Casual, don't come running to Simon Feck when the news drops next week. Number 5, Hank the Tank, ladies and gentlemen. Hank the Tank got doxed himself. And he'll tell you it wasn't a fun experience. Okay? Simon Feck happens to think that Hank the Tank is talent, ladies and gentlemen. Hank the Tank has never done anything to Simon Feck. Hank, if you want to, when you hear the news next week and you want to be part of the project, contact me at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. Number 6, Clown Show Live, ladies and gentlemen. Clown Show Live, ladies and gentlemen. He loves to go around and call me by this other name, ladies and gentlemen. He loves to call me by this other name. It's like he thinks he's doxing me, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, no matter what I think about Clown Show, ladies and gentlemen, he can't be involved in the project. You know why? Because other people that are involved in the project don't want him in the project, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. Number 6.5, ladies and gentlemen. The Sewer King, ladies and gentlemen. The Sewer King, ladies and gentlemen. I asked the Sewer King a couple times. I'm not really sure that the Sewer King got my message, ladies and gentlemen. The Sewer King had people messaging Simon Feck when he was off of YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. They were getting a hold of Simon Feck, but they would not identify themselves as actually being the Sewer King, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm not really sure if the Sewer King got the message. Sewer King, if you want to be part of this project after you hear the news next week, ladies and gentlemen, Sewer King, get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. Number 7, ladies and gentlemen, Jock. Jock with underscore, ladies and gentlemen. Jock used to be Yerp with an underscore, ladies and gentlemen. Now he's Jock with an underscore, ladies and gentlemen. Jock was in there. Jock was tied up in the doxing, ladies and gentlemen. It was happening all around Jock. Jock seemed to be the central point of the whole thing, ladies and gentlemen. But yet, Jock came to my rescue, ladies and gentlemen. Jock, next week after you hear the information and you want to be a part of the project, you get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. Number 8, musical MMA, ladies and gentlemen. Musical MMA has never, he's never done anything that I know of against Simon Feck. If I asked musical MMA to do me a favor, he did me a favor. So I've done him a couple favors. That's how it works. I gave the information like a month or 2 or whatever ago. And right away, he didn't even ask questions. He said, could he be a part of it? I said, yes. Musical MMA, when you hear the news next week and you want to be a part of the project, you give Simon Feck a buzz on Instagram at MMA Simon Feck. Number 9, BK, ladies and gentlemen. There you go, Charles Smith. There's a name for you, BK. So I was like, we need a predictor for this project, right? We need somebody that does predictions, right? So I'm like, yeah, BK would be the predictions guy. I kind of like his style, the way he does it, live and everything, right? And then today I heard that he's only 60% on his picks, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't know. Well, what I write here. There's not a yes and there's not a no, ladies and gentlemen. Number 10, Denis Shkuratov. Denis Shkuratov, let me tell you something. When the news breaks next week, let me tell you what Denis Shkuratov did to me. I reached out to Denis and I said, hey, Denis, can I interview you? From Submission Radio, right? And I have been next to Denis. I sit next to Denis at the MMA fight sometimes, right? So he's just like a guy, next door or whatever. I said, Denis, can I interview you? He said, yes. A whole week goes by, right? A week goes by, and then I get a hold of him again like 2 days, 3 days ahead of time, and he goes, yeah, we're still on. Then it comes the day ahead of time, and then Denis goes, well, what kind of questions are you going to ask me? I sent him the questions, and then he said, the questions are good and everything like that, but I don't think I want to get involved with you. Denis, I'm telling you right now, Denis, you made a big mistake there. Denis, don't call me. Don't get a hold of me on Instagram, Denis Shkuratov from Submission Radio. Don't get a hold of me when you hear the information next week, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Mike Heck. Mike Heck from, MMA Fighting on SBN. I asked Mike Heck, I don't know, jokingly, right? Jokingly to do like a collab together. Mike Heck doesn't have time for Simon Feck, for the Heck and the Feck show. Mike Heck doesn't want to put together the Heck and the Feck show. Well, guess what, Mike Heck? When you hear the information next week, when you hear the press release next week, don't get a hold of Simon Feck and tell you want to be part of the project. You hear me? Mike Heck is out, ladies and gentlemen. Jeb Meshew. I told Jeb Meshew, I said, hey, look, you're wasting your time over there at MMA Fighting. Jeb Meshew doesn't want to get back to Simon Feck. I don't even need to tell you what I thought about, Jeb Meshew and if he's going to be a part of the project, ladies and gentlemen. Number 13, Douglas Memmo. There's one for you right there. Charles Smith, there's one for you. Douglas Memmo. Douglas Memmo doesn't talk bad about Simon Feck, ladies and gentlemen. Douglas Memmo wants to be part of the project. Get a hold of Simon Feck after you hear the press release next week, ladies and gentlemen. On Instagram at MMA Simon Feck, ladies and gentlemen. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what Charles Smith's been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. Charles Smith has another name written down here, but we're going to go with Charles Smith, ladies and gentlemen. At number 14, and then listen, most of these are no's, right? There's not too many people been nice to Simon Feck, ladies and gentlemen. But let me tell you something. These aren't in any particular order, ladies and gentlemen. Number 14, Charles Smith, ladies and gentlemen. I told the Clown Show when I was on there, I think Halloween night, ladies and gentlemen, my first time on the Clown Show, and I was on there 2 times, ladies and gentlemen. Let me put this up first, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. So I told Clown Show, I said, hey, look, this guy, Charles Smith, I mean, is he going to come on or whatever? And he the Clown Show says, why are you asking about him? I said, Charles Smith is the most interesting guy. Now, he comes on there with a voice changer, right? And it's like, I don't want to call it generic, but it's so deep and it's so cool. And the way he approaches it, and I don't know what else to say. I really want Charles Smith, almost more than anybody, ladies and gentlemen, to be part of the project after next week, after Charles Smith hears, the press conference, ladies and gentlemen. If Charles Smith wants to be a part of the project, ladies and gentlemen, after next week, get a hold of Simon Feck on MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Here's a name right here, ladies and gentlemen. Some names are on here, and then some names are not. We're basically halfway through them right now, ladies and gentlemen. Number 14 and a half. Okay, number 14 and a half. Fight Night Frankie, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, check this out, right? So Fight Night Frankie. Fight Night Frankie's very nice to Simon Feck, right? And then he's always asking me to come on his show. But during this, doxing thing, right? So I forget what it was, like Giuliani on there and what's his name? Brutally Honest, right? And Fight Night Frankie. And things were going on. And then Fight Night Frankie was really drunk, right? So Fight Night Frankie was really drunk. And he goes, to me, Simon Feck, hey, why don't you come on and let's talk about it? It'll be really funny. It'll be really funny. And he kept saying that. He said it for like an hour and a half straight. He's saying other things, but he kept saying it would be really funny. Fight Night Frankie, what would be so funny for me to come on talking about the doxing thing? Why would it be funny? Fight Night Frankie, why don't you tell us what college you're a professor at and tell us your real name, and then you come on my show and I'll tell everybody, and then I'll just say, hey, it's real funny, isn't it, Fight Night Frankie? Let me tell you something right now. Next week after the press release, ladies and gentlemen, Fight Night Frankie, you don't need to get a hold of me on Instagram at MMA Simon Feck, let me tell you. Number 15, MMA Joey. I just found this out, ladies and gentlemen. I've never been banned from anybody's YouTube channel yesterday. I was in there yesterday and I did a comment. Most of the time he never reads. He might have read one or two of mine of like 20, right? And yesterday he said he was going to ban me. But obviously he didn't ban me. You know why he didn't ban me? Because he knows who I am. He knows like some of the other media people, right? And he knows who I am. He was just like warning me that he didn't like it and it was bad enough to ban. But the little pussy MMA Joey didn't ban me yesterday. You little pussy. Then I found out after we announced this next week, let me tell you, I found out that somebody else might not like MMA Joey, and then somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. Ladies and gentlemen, MMA Joey, don't get a hold of us after next week. I'm just telling you that right now. Number 16, Fight Society. The Fight Society guy, check this out, right? I didn't know who he was till like 2 weeks ago. I go in there, and then he goes, hey, let me check out your channel. So he checks out the channel, and he puts it up on the screen, but no audio. And then he looks up and he goes, hey, I just lost viewers. You know, basically take a hike. Listen to me, Fight Society. You're doing pretty good there, right? After you hear the information next week, the press conference, do not get a hold of Simon Feck and ask to be part of the project. Fight Society. Number 17, FightFairy. You know what? Here's one right here. I've never talked to the girl ever. But FightFairy, after the press release next week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to need a predictor. Someone that does predictions, right? We just talked about BK doing. We didn't go yes or no with BK. But let me tell you something. If FightFairy wants to be part of the predictions next week, okay, get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram. FightFairy. Number 18, Logan Jay, ladies and gentlemen. Check this out, right? We got some comments in here. There's Giuliani and I don't know, Speck and Miles Stoner and Speck and Miles Stoner and Speck and another Speck, and we got some stuff going on, right? Logan Jay. So the clown keeps saying, prove that Logan Jay came to you and all that, right? Well, it happened to the clown show today. Logan Jay gave some comments like an X or something like that, and the messages disappeared on Clown because Clown was going to show him live. He goes, give me a minute and I'll show you what Logan Jay just sent to me. And the stuff disappeared on him. See what I'm talking about, Clown Show? The stuff disappeared. Logan Jay was calling it a magic trick. So Logan Jay came to me crying about the Clown Show, but who cares? I don't care. Guess what, Logan Jay? Next week when the news drops, Logan Jay, don't get a hold of Simon Feck. Number 19, Vinny the Guinea, ladies and gentlemen. Vinny the Guinea. The Vinny the Guinea and the Hank the Tank and everything, that little combo right there, ladies and gentlemen. After you hear the news next week, get a hold of Simon Feck, and you like it, get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram. No chill, get a hold of MMA Simon Feck on Instagram. I had an original list and it got erased. I put it all together yesterday and it got erased. So I put it down on conventional paper so it doesn't get erased. And No Chill was on it. Number 20, Left Hook Larry. Left Hook Larry, he's cool to Simon Feck. After you hear the news next week and you want to be a part of the project, get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget, I need 50 subscribers on at MMA Access. Number 21, Cheddarhead. Cheddarhead was like the first person that didn't like Simon Feck, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what it was. Every time I went into a chat, Cheddarhead was talking about Simon Feck. I know he doesn't want to be a part of it or anything like that, right? But I don't want Cheddarhead coming into anything of this project. I don't want him in my chat. I don't want him in this chat, and I don't want him in the new project, ladies and gentlemen. Cheddarhead, stay out. I mean, I don't even want to tell you what Cheddarhead was saying. Unbelievable. Number 22, Ulysses. After you hear the news next week, Ulysses, useless, and you like it, get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. There's a guy from Caged Minds, ladies and gentlemen. His name's Micah Frankel, ladies and gentlemen. After he hears the news next week, have Michael Frankel from Caged Minds, ladies and gentlemen. Get a hold of Simon Feck if you like it, okay? At MMA Simon Feck on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. Number 24, ladies and gentlemen, MMA Consultant. I wrote down here, no talent. MMA Consultant, after you hear the news next week, do not get a hold of Simon Feck and ask him if you could be part of the project. Number 25, here's an interesting one right here. Bodach, ladies and gentlemen. Bodach tried doxing Simon Feck, 1 foot cock, ladies and gentlemen. Also, he's a glitcher, right? Unfortunately, here's the problem with the Bodach thing, right? Unfortunately, Bodach is going to have to be probably part of the project. And I'll have to get a hold of Bodach and explain to him why, ladies and gentlemen. That's an interest. That's why I said that one's interesting right there. It's like a guy on the opposite team that's got to be on my team for some reason. The guy that likes to dox Simon Feck, and he also likes to do glitches. Getting near the last 4 or 5 here, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody typing into chat. Number 26, MMA Guru. I don't know how many times I got to tell this story. It's like the clown show. I thought the clown show was on repeat today. He said the same thing. It was like 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes long, and he kept saying the same thing over and over again for like 9 hours. I've told this story a couple times, ladies and gentlemen. My name's MMA Guru, Simon Feck. The MMA Guru came on. I have audio and video of MMA Guru telling people that he stole the name. I was the MMA Guru, ladies and gentlemen. MMA Guru stole my name. Of course, when he hears the news next week, you don't know what I'm putting together, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the MMA Guru might be interested, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm going to tell right now, I don't care how good or big or bad this project is, ladies and gentlemen. The MMA Guru, don't get a hold of Simon Feck after you hear the news next week. Number 27, Jimmy the Drunk. I forgot what I wrote. Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy the Drunk. Unfortunately, I don't have to write yes or no. Jimmy the Drunk is busy for 5 months, ladies and gentlemen. So therefore, I don't have to write yes or no or whatever. Imagine that, a guy named Jimmy the Drunk is so busy for 5 months that he can't do anything. He can't even go to a UFC fight, ladies and gentlemen. And if you think your life is bad, there's a guy named Jimmy the Drunk he has more things to do than you. Jimmy the Drunk is busy for 5 straight months. The last couple ones here, ladies and gentlemen. Chiwi. Now, there's a few Chiwis going around, ladies and gentlemen. So we got, I don't know if they're all the same, but I'm talking about a Chiwi and a Chiwi, and then there's a Chiwi, and then there's Chiwi, and then there's another Chiwi. Pretty interested in Chiwi. Chiwi, get a hold of me next week if you like the announcement at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram. Number 29, Ronan. Ronan, this is an interesting one right here, ladies and gentlemen. So I go in Ronan's like chat. Okay. Oh, and then Dougie's Corner, he said for me that it's about time I changed my name. Well, listen, before you open your mouth, Dougie's Corner, MMA Guru stole the name from me. Okay? I'm over it. Anyways, Ronan. Ronan's like, yeah, he's like trying to be nice, but he's a dick to me at the same time. He's kind of like, yeah, Simon Feck, yeah, this, that, whatever, but basically go buzz off. Ronan, don't get a hold of Simon Feck when you hear the news next week, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on a second. And Unk MMA, we can't have anybody. I mean, this is going to be a serious project. We can't have anybody that looks like they're going to fall asleep at any second, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know what the reason is why it looks like you're going to fall asleep, and then you're like frozen like this. And then you start moving again. But anybody with the name MMA Bunny or whatever your name is, a rabbit or whatever like that, we don't need you, dude. So next week, listen to me. I said it like 3 or 4 months ago. I said there's a big project ready to happen, ladies and gentlemen. But I can't tell you for like 3 or 4 months. Well, next week, the project gets announced, ladies and gentlemen. And we're putting a super group together, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody putting their comments in there and everything like that. But let me tell you something. Listen in tight, ladies and gentlemen. Simon Feck is putting a project together. Or let's say a group of people are putting a project together, ladies and gentlemen. And there's going to be a big press release next week, ladies and gentlemen. And I just went ahead and told everybody on my list if you're going to be invited, if you want to be part of it or not. And everybody that's not, going to be invited to be part of it. Because I've asked a few people a couple simple things, like Hunt. I asked Hunt to come on and do a collab, and I'll give you the answers and just try to act like Patty Pimlet. And he said he wouldn't do it. Well, you're not going to be part of the project. You missed the boat, dude. And then what is it? City Life Project. I asked you to do a 30-second voiceover for me, and you said no. But listen, there's about 2 or 3 names, big names that I left off of this. And here goes. I'm going to list the 2 or 3 names that I left off that I'm going to need to address right now, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. The very first name that I need to address that I would like to be part of this project, ladies and gentlemen. The big names, the names that everybody's thinking about. I mean, it's in your head right now, ladies and gentlemen, right? The very first person that needs to get a hold of Simon Feck at MMA Simon Feck on Instagram after you hear the press release next week, ladies and gentlemen. The very first person on the list of 3 big names right here. The very first person is